Hand signal. Hey everyone, it's Samia Khan here with a Fox 10 News Now update. Joining me is Fox 10's Mark Martinez. You are on the big story of the day. We've been talking about it all morning, earlier today on Fox 10 News Now. I mean, it's the big story not only here locally, but I mean, it's being covered nationally, internationally. This cold case from the 1990s, possibly solved, a suspect arrested yesterday night.
Right, and we were when we heard about this last night. I was in the newsroom, and we knew that there was something big going on because we were told the interim chief of police was going to the scene last night, a little after 9 o'clock. So we knew that this was going to be big.
We do have B-roll of that scene. I'll pull that up.
We did not know, however, how big this would actually be. That we were talking about two cold cases, two of the highest profile cold cases that we've had here in the Valley in decades. And so there's the scene from last night. You can see the huge presence of all the detectives out there gathering evidence at the scene. Now, we're learning a lot more today, of course, about the suspect in this case, Bryan Patrick Miller. Today, he did appear in court in the jailhouse this morning in front of a judge, hearing the number of charges against him, 2 counts of first-degree murder. He's also facing kidnapping charges, sexual assault charges.
Here we have a picture
The
of him.
Judge has denied him bond, of course, because of the seriousness of the charges.
Of course.
And because this could be a capital case, a death penalty case, if he's found guilty of the charges against him. We were learning a lot more about him, too. We've talked to neighbors who live next door to him, and they said he was kind of an odd guy. He was into a lot of this role-playing kind of stuff, zombies. In fact, I think on his Facebook page, you might have some pictures of that.
Right, let me go ahead and pull that up.
He had a really unique car. This was a car that he had that was an old police car that he'd outfitted and called it a zombie hunter. And he would go to a lot of the First Friday events and the zombie walks in downtown Phoenix that they have. And he was kind of well known. He would drive this car around and was known as like the zombie hunter guy, very into this kind of stuff. And he also would go to a lot of the Comic-Con type of thing. Not that this has anything to do with his criminal history, but he was pretty well known. And on his Facebook page,
locally,
he's got lots of pictures. Yeah,
he wasn't someone who was trying to hide.
No, he wasn't in hiding. I mean, he was out there. He had lots of friends. In fact, on his Facebook page, a lot of the posts from people are saying how shocked they are at the arrest. A lot of people are in disbelief. And of course, you know, he has only been arrested at this time, not convicted. But huge break in this case. If what police are saying is true, that the DNA that they recently got from Bryan Miller matches the evidence that they gathered back in 92 and 93 in the cases of these two young women who were murdered.
Right, so for those viewers who might not know the background of this case, so there were 2 women murdered, one in 1992, one in 93, both of whom were last seen riding bicycles. The one woman from 1992...
Angela Brazo,
Yes.
She's 22 years old.
22 years old. She was beheaded.
Right.
And her head was found near the canal, and her body was found near where she lived.
Her body was found near the apartment, and her head was found in the canal shortly after.
And this canal is near, I believe, it's Cactus and like 27th Ave or something like that, around there.
Right, in that area, and that's where they found her head floating, and then about a year later, we were talking about 17-year-old Melanie Bernis, and same situation. She was out riding her bike and disappeared. And her body was also found shortly after in the canal. And
I mean, that's some video of that.
This is a story that we recently did. In fact, Jill Monier just not too long ago did a story on these cold cases because they were so high profile at the time, and they seem to have really actually gone very cold. And it was they got a tip back in '94 that gave them the name of Bryan Miller, but things have advanced so much as far as forensic DNA and technology goes. They did not have this DNA technology back then. They couldn't match him to any crime without any direct physical evidence. So his name was one of thousands that they had.
Right.
Recently, going back over the cold cases, they came up with a name again. And with all the technology we have now, they were able to go out and get his DNA. We don't know how they got it. They haven't told us that. But they got his DNA very recently. And with the evidence that they collected back then, we're able to match Bryan Miller's DNA to some of the pieces of evidence they gathered at the crime scene. And that's what led to his arrest last night.
So this is...
here's we're looking at Angela Brazo and the area where the crime happened. And there's Melanie Bernis, again, one of the young victims. that disappeared. Today in court, Miller didn't say anything. The judge told him he could, or if he wanted to say something, he could. He opted not to say anything, as he heard the charges that he's now facing. And again, he has a 15-year-old daughter. We're not sure what's going to happen with her. He was married. He moved to Washington State after the crimes happened. Was there for about 10 years and then moved back to the Phoenix area about 10 years ago. So, and had a daughter. He got married up there. Apparently they're separated, estranged, and he had full custody. So we're not sure what's going to happen with his 15-year-old daughter in this case.
Right. Am I hearing correctly that the Washington police are now looking to see if this man was connected to their cold cases up there?
Yeah, so what's happened now is they've taken his fingerprint and DNA information and have entered that into a national database, an FBI national database. So they can compare that to evidence that they have gathered at other unsolved crimes in areas where they know he has lived, and maybe even other areas where they have unsolved crimes. So now they can compare that to what they have and see if perhaps he is related to any unsolved crimes in Washington State or even here in Arizona.
Right. I had Ron Hoon on earlier this morning, when the news first broke, right after the morning show, and he was telling me that Miller may have been connected to a stabbing at Paradise Valley Mall in 1989 that was somehow taken off his record or something like that.
Yeah,
so, I mean, things like that, for example.
That's the first I've heard of it, but now going back, I talked with a former Phoenix police homicide detective earlier today off the record. We were just out talking, and some of the things he told me, though, about the way that the operations worked back then is they would just kind of gather all the information, all the evidence that they could really gather, bag that up, and then send it over to the crime lab, where it would sit for sometimes decades until they could figure out what exactly to do with it. And now with all the technology, they're going back and solving a lot of crimes that they just could not solve back then unless they had a direct witness or direct physical evidence. So that shows you the technology that was able to lead to the arrest of Miller last night.
Right, and I have a question, and this might be too technical.
Shoot.
What technology has changed? What have been the advancements in recent years that have allowed police to, figure out something like this?
It's the gathering of the DNA sample. It used to be you'd have to have a large amount of, whether it be blood, any kinds of bodily fluids, that sort of thing. You would hope for maybe some skin to come off if somebody had touched something. But now they are able to gather that. It doesn't have to be such a huge amount.
If I touch this piece of paper, they could get my DNA.
Well, they can get,
or something. No,
most
maybe?
likely they could, but he was telling me they can get DNA now smaller than the size of a head of a needle. So they could get that small amount now, and the analysis has gotten so great that they can actually determine a 1 in a trillion chance that is the person linked to the crime.
So they're that confident in
it's gotten
the technology.
That even in the past 6 years, it's gotten even so much more advanced than it was. And back in 92 and 93, they just didn't have that at all. So we're in a situation now where they've never been before as far as linking people to crimes. And that's why they're convinced with this case that they'll be able to, either he's going to have some sort of deal, or they will be able to convict him on the evidence that they have. They're very confident.
Right, and in a cold case such as this, I assume that they're not going to make an arrest and, make a public announcement unless they're 100% confident, because, 22, 23 years have passed from these incidents. I'm assuming it's
And that's what goes back to the evidence and the technology that was able to produce this result of an arrest, is that they're confident that if it gets to a jury and they show them this evidence to a jury, that it's mathematical. That this is his DNA. This DNA was found on these pieces of evidence that have been sitting in a crime evidence locker for 22, 23 years. They can now match them up, and that's what made the arrest.
That was really loud.
So it's certainly quite a development. Now, I wasn't here when this happened. You weren't here when this happened. It goes back a long time. But for people who lived in the Valley, and I know we're going to hear from John Hook coming up in a little bit.
Just in a couple
this
minutes.
was a huge crime, both of them. And people were on edge. People were frightened. They wondered, is there a serial killer on the loose? Young women were completely frightened about going out on their own. So this is something that really had the valley kind of paralyzed while this happened. And so even though a lot of people may not have been here when this happened, it is a huge deal for the Valley law enforcement, Arizona law enforcement, to make an arrest in this case.
Right.
And for the families of the victims, too.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you brought it up because I'm actually about to play a clip. Anita Roman spoke with the public information officer, the Phoenix police spokesperson
At the time,
from
right? Yeah.
the 1990s. Yeah, she spoke with him this morning, and I'm actually going to play the full 5-minute clip now.
Yeah, it's going to be
And
fascinating to
he
hear.
just goes into detail about just how big of a deal this was and how it's a case that you never forget. You never forget the day. And it's something that replays in your mind, and you just wonder. And it's amazing to listen to, and I definitely want to share that
and
with
before you play that, I do want to point out, too, Anita told me that this guy came back on his own, paid his own way to come back to the Valley to be here. And some of the other detectives did as well, have moved away. This was such a huge case for them. They came back when they heard there was an arrest to be there and to kind of see the scene and to just get, I guess, some closure for them as well.
Absolutely. I mean, they probably spent years on
this.
this.
They did. Yeah, this was
and if not even just actually working on it on a day-to-day basis, I mean, in your mind.
Yeah, they never let it go. You
Right.
know, it still was lingering with them.
Sure.
And now they've got that case, hopefully case closed.
Right. So I want to go ahead and play that clip for you guys right now. 1993, what was your job title?
I was a public information officer for the Phoenix Police Department at that time.
Okay, so do you remember receiving the phone call in September, what is it? No, November of 1992?
Absolutely, I do. And I don't think anyone that investigated that case from the homicide detail, which was at that time run by Lieutenant Sherry Kyler, would forget any of those hours and days following. At the time we were called out, it ended up being a 3-day initial investigation where they painstakingly went over that crime scene.
What time did the call come in? What were you doing? And were you thinking, when you know what I mean? Like, what kind of goes through your mind when they call you and say, hey, we found a body floating in the canal?
Well, initially we didn't know in terms of the condition that we would find when we arrived there. The scene was so large, the area was so big, it took almost a day to reach the crime scene because of the expanse there in terms of a large area of the field, the dirt that was there, etc.
What time did the call come in?
The initial call came in the morning, if I remember, early hours.
Do you remember the date?
November 9th. And I don't think anyone that was there that spent that time there would forget. It's something that my family even knows and is aware of. And every year at that anniversary date, I know all the homicide detectives that worked on that case thought about it. And we all have thought about it over the years and were hopeful and knew that at some point there would be a solution. And come today, we find that there's been a lot of great work by the Phoenix Police Department. And it's on two levels, really. There was a lot of great work initially. There was no DNA available at that time. And the dogged response by the Phoenix Police Department, the Cold Case Squad, and what they've done, what they've been able to do, and what it's come to today is phenomenal. And I think everyone should know that that's the kind of way, or the kind of investigative techniques and abilities that this department has.
Take us to the second case. That was September 1993.
Yeah.
What day is that? What time did that call come in?
I don't recall the time exactly, but I do recall the feelings that everyone had on that investigation at the time, what was going on in terms of everyone knowing and realizing at that time that here we have a second homicide, much in the same manner, both of the young ladies riding bicycles, and it was here we go again. So there was a lot of concern in the community, a lot of concern with their families, of course, worry about what was going to come, and then it just went dead.
What was it like for you every year? Because it seems obviously showing up here, this has not left your heart or your mind.
No, it hasn't at all.
What was it? Do you remember the date in September?
No, I don't recall.
What was it like for you every year around that time, thinking, gosh?
Well, I would go over it in my mind, all the days and the hours that we spent initially there, the homicide detectives, of course, all the work that was being done. I think for 3 days, the only thing that those homicide detectives did in terms of having relief to be able to get something to eat and to leave the scene for a few minutes was to basically to go home, take a shower, change their clothes, and come back. And it was critical at that time, as you all know, when you look at these kinds of investigations, to know that the initial response is to get all the evidence that's available, all the things that are possibly available to gather is critical. And then to have, of course, the kind of response that comes later with having them to go on and on and on and never forget that there's a family that wants some kind of closure, to know that there's going to be some sort of justice for them, and that there's a group of people that are concerned and care about what's going on.
This was, your job was to act as a liaison with the media,
With the media,
public.
yes.
And so this was before, as Mike pointed out, before the baseline killer.
Yep.
So really, as you said, sparking a lot of fear. How were you relating the information to the public? I mean,
well, we did it as timely as possible, as you all know, with Trent and Sergeant Crump and the way they still conduct business as far as media relations is concerned. There's a lot of things that can't be said. There's a lot of things that can't be given out because of the guarding the investigation itself. But we were trying to do it in a timely fashion. Of course, there's a critical amount of interest in the community, and we wanted to make sure that everyone knew as much as we could possibly give them.
How is it here today?
I'm sorry?
How is it being here today?
Kind of surreal in a way. I see that the same kinds of deliberate steps are being taken by the detectives. Those things never change, making sure that they're doing as best a job as they can to gather the evidence to create basically a case here to go on.
But for you personally, being
For me
here,
personally, it makes me feel really good to know. It raises a lot of feelings, but it's good to know that there's going to be some closure for the family. Angela's mother, especially. We became quite familiar with her and communicating with her on a regular basis, and to know that she's going to have that knowledge that someone has been brought to justice, I think is a great relief.
Thank you. Let's get a couple two shots. In 1992...
Wow, that takes me back, I'll tell you. Leo Speliopoulos, I haven't laid eyes on that guy in a while, but he was one of the first guys I met over at Phoenix PD when I came here as a reporter in 1993, and that story was one of the first stories I was on.
Wow.
And it sticks with you. You never forget it.
I mean, what a story to be on, right, when you get here.
Well, and Leo, he was, as he said in that interview, I gave everything I could give, but we hold some things back. And one of the things at the time was Phoenix PD at the time, a day or two after, would not connect the two. Angela Brazo's decapitation and murder in the year before, in 1992, they wouldn't link that to Melanie Burness, which happened in September of 93, the one I covered.
Even though the commonalities, the bicycles,
we were asking, but they were holding it
canal.
back. Yeah, they did not want to go there, and they held it back. And he pretty much said that we give you guys everything we can, but we hold some things back for the investigation. And we may not like it, but we understand it.
Right, because when they're in the middle of the investigation, it's our job to report to the public. So the alleged killer could be watching.
Yeah, and you want in the end, you want them to get it right, and
Right.
perhaps they have with the arrest of this Bryan Patrick Miller last night. You don't want to ever, as a reporter, jeopardize an investigation and something you do, God forbid, end up allowing a killer to go free. So
Right.
we understand there's a give and take here. We want the information, we want to put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
We understand the police have a job to do, and we try to get along with them as best we can.
So last night, for you, someone who covered this more than 20 years ago, when you found out about this arrest, what was going on through your mind?
I was absolutely stunned. The cold case crew, and Leo talked about it in that interview, they are amazing what they do. Mm-hmm. Because we think they've forgotten about it, and they haven't. They kept working this case.
Right.
And at the time, and I did a follow-up, Jill Monier did a follow-up 20 years later, I did one 10 years later. And at the time, 10 years later, there was even a working theory that this guy might be a trucker. He might have come in and out of town, wasn't here anymore, maybe did this around the country. There was also a theory that he may have been dead, so
Right.
that we might never have an answer. And we don't know about this Bryan Patrick Miller, if he's the guy.
Right.
But obviously the DNA, that's what brought them to this point, and DNA is powerful evidence they didn't have in 1992, 1993. We really saw DNA come into the fore with O.J. Simpson. That's when we really started to see DNA happen. Fortunately, they had it, and they kept it, And then when they had somebody they were looking at and they were focusing on, they were able to use that DNA taken from back then to try to pull a match, and that's how they got Bryan Patrick Miller.
Right, and we still don't know how they got his DNA.
That's
but
right.
They're very confident.
But you can get DNA off a glass, a soda can,
Right.
a cigarette butt, and cops will collect this stuff
Sure.
when the person's not looking.
Of course.
And swoop in and take it. They'll take
Right.
a cigarette butt and say, "This is it. We got it." So there's a lot of ways they can do it.
Right. Wow. I know that we actually have the
Yes,
video.
I understand that. Yep.
The package, the story that you did, one of the first stories you did when
Right.
you covered.
Right. This is
Melanie
probably
Br-
the first or second story I did.
Really? Like
at
right
Fox
at the-
10.
okay.
Yeah, I was hired in August of '93, and this was September
Mm-hmm.
of '93. So it was one of the first stories I did. And again, at the time, nobody knew.
Mm-hmm.
The police knew that they were connecting these two cases, but they would not tell us that. So that'll explain my tag on the set with then anchor Clarence Scott.
Okay, cool. So let me just get that ready and share that with everyone now.
And as John Hogue tells us, so does life, even at the very site of the gruesome find.
Even after sunset, the bikers and joggers keep rolling along. Some of them unaware that the body of a murdered teen was found here. Many who travel this path, though, come prepared.
Sometimes I do end up riding this path at night. I ride with my mace and usually a chain in my hand because I don't really trust anybody out here, no matter what time of the day or night.
Although this bike path near Metro Center is well traveled, after about 7 o'clock, it's no place to be. Just to give you an idea, it is total darkness out here.
Well, I don't wear it during the day. Obviously, at night, sure, there's a concern, but we always ride during the day, and I've been down here at night, and there's nothing on this place at night.
Many who use this bike path remember another murder in this area a year ago. 22-year-old Angela Brazo went on a bike ride and was murdered. Her killer never found. It's causing some uneasiness.
It's kind of strange in the same place. What did they do with the case on Angela? I mean, what happened there? And now this has happened again in the same area.
Now, Phoenix police acknowledge there are some similarities between the Brazo and Bernis murders. It is something they are certainly looking at tonight, but at this point, they do not believe the two are the work of the same killer.
John, there was also some word that other women have been attacked in that area.
Yeah, Claren, there was some word, and they are looking for people who may have come across the suspect in this case. They don't have a suspect, but someone who may have been in the area. It's possible that a woman was riding in that area or someone encountered the person and got away, and they're looking for people who might know something.
They'd like to hear from them.
You bet.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Wow.
Long time ago. Yeah, that's going back in the files. Again, these are stories that, you cover them and people think we don't have feelings about this stuff, but
Right.
this is one of those that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a tragedy. This girl was in high school
Right.
at Arcadia, takes a bike ride and never comes home. And Angela Brazo, the same situation. And you feel for the families and you just... your heart aches for them. It's tough. It's really tough. And to see that maybe there's some resolution here, man, I mean, that's a powerful, powerful thing.
Right. And I feel like we're just going to learn more and more information as
Yeah.
the days go by.
Well, one of the things that happened last night, and there's a picture of it somewhere, they took a bike out of this Bryan Patrick Miller,
right,
the
we do
suspects.
have a video from that from last night.
There are a couple of bicycles that were missing in connection with these crimes. The one belonging to Angela Brazo and one belonging to Melanie Bernis. And that would be powerful information.
Right, if
they
those are
find
the bikes.
bike.
I mean, what are the odds that there are old bikes that happen to be in this shed where this man lives?
Well, they went somewhere.
Right, and
They went
we
somewhere,
never found the
and
bikes.
is there a thought that the killer kept them as a trophy?
Right.
So, I mean, it's as gruesome as it gets. And this again, before the baseline killer case, and so you can imagine the city was really freaked out by these killings.
Right.
Not only the killings and two young girls in the prime and just beginning their lives, but then to have one of them savagely beheaded and the other mutilated, people were like, what is going on here? So, as we look at some of the video from this.
Right.
So it's one of those crimes that shocked the community. I'm sure a lot of people who've lived here a long time remember this. You won't forget it. I certainly didn't.
Right. Well, I know we're going to have updates on this.
We will.
As we get that information. John, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's, you hope, as in all of these cases, that if this is a guy,
right.
Great work to the Phoenix Police Department.
Absolutely.
Great work.
And it was great to have your perspective as well, having covered it back then, and then, even being able to watch your coverage from then. And you making that comment, obviously, like you said, the police were not going to link the two.
No, not at the time.
That's something that, you speculated.
No, we knew.
Like, day
at the
two
time,
of your
we knew. I mean, everybody was asking, like, come on, you've got two young girls on bicycles in the same area.
Absolutely.
Up there on I-17, up near Metro Center, come on. They've got to be connected somehow. But Phoenix PD didn't want to go there at the time. They had their reasons. I understand it.
All right, John. Well,
Thank
thanks for joining me. I'm going to tell our viewers now about Internet Cafe Gambling Bust. Yep. And I believe Ty Brennan is going to join me in just a second to talk to me about this illegal gambling bust. Ty, I'm just showing them some video of the outside.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like, a regular internet cafe.
Right.
But today we learned from multiple law enforcement agencies that were involved that these locations were actually illegal gambling operations were taking place. So people would go inside. This is how it all worked. People would go inside, kind of like a sweepstakes, give money, and then they would do some sort of drawing, and then they would possibly win the money. So it's kind of...
So they knew that they were going into gambling. Well, explain. So I am just a normal bystander.
Sure.
I don't know that I'm doing something illegal.
Well, see,
is that what it is?
Those people are not in trouble. They're going after the people that were running this. And we have the name of the guy here. I don't know if you can pull up his mugshot. It's probably too late because I didn't give you his name in time. But his name is Eric Stellis. And allegedly, this guy ran the same type of operation back in 2013. And he was actually indicted on charges of running the same type of operation back in 2013. And then here he is 2 years later running the same sort of operation again. So this guy obviously knew that he was running this illegal operation.
I found him.
There he is. So that's his mugshot of Eric Stellis. And he's the one who allegedly was running the mastermind behind this whole operation. So anyway, yesterday, the Department of Gaming, they were kind of tipped off about this, that this guy might still be out there doing this sort of thing. So they sent undercover agents into these different locations. There's two different locations, one on 15th Ave and Indian School. Then there was another one on 35th Ave up and on Northern. There's two different locations. So they sent people into those two locations, the agents in there.
So with this mouse pad one that you...
Yep, that's the one that's on 35th Ave and Northern.
Okay.
They sent those agents in there to kind of do some investigation. They found that there was illegal gambling going on. So then they had a search warrant for 6 different locations, including these 2 locations that you see here. The Mouse Pad Cafe, the other one was called the Barbershop Internet Cafe.
I think that we do have video of that as well.
There's this, yep. So that's the barbershop. So they went in, and then they had 2 residents, 2 different... two different storage sheds that they went into, and they confiscated a whole bunch of items that they believe were connected to this. So there was a number of cars, 6 ATVs, 2 motorcycles, $20,000 in cash, a whole bunch of weapons, including guns, and there was even a bow and arrow in one of the pictures that they took, computers, televisions, and then the gaming devices, all the computers and things that were associated with this sort of ring. So that's what happened today.
So what do the vehicles have to do with the gambling bus and the TV? Like, I understand the devices and weapons, obviously that makes sense.
Well, that's the same.
Even computers, but...
That's the same question I asked today in the news conference. And they said that these items were possibly purchased
with illegal
funds from the gambling. So these are all been seized. They've also seized all of the bank accounts of these people that were associated with this. So again, this guy was allegedly doing this.
But how many people are affected besides this Eric?
Well, Stellis. He was the only one that was in trouble, but he wasn't arrested. He is facing a lot of charges, though.
So no one's been arrested?
No one's been arrested, but he's, like I said before, he's already in trouble with the law because he was under that indicted already.
Right.
So they're just going to be compounding these charges. So charges are still pending on him, but they could be up to and including money laundering, which would be the the brunt of the law that he could get, and he could face anywhere from 3 to 12 years in jail. So obviously a lot of investigation will still go into this, but it's something that's pretty interesting is that this Mark Brnovich, our Arizona Attorney General, is the former head of the Department of Gaming. So these types of crimes he's very passionate about, because obviously he was the head of this department. So any type of, anything that has to do with illegal gambling, he said today that, these guys, basically giving them a warning. If you're running any type of illegal operation as far as gambling is concerned, they're going to go after you, and then they're going to prosecute you to the full extent of the law, because obviously he's seen a lot of damage that illegal gambling can do here in Arizona. So that's a little preview of our story today, but we'll have kind of break it all down in our 5 o'clock story.
5 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay, got it. That's interesting.
It is pretty interesting because, we were talking about this. I mean, there is so many different type of gambling that is legal here in Arizona, but there's the very fine line between that legal and illegal. So obviously this is illegal.
Right.
So yeah.
And I just got to Arizona, so I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to ask you.
I don't know the answer either.
Maybe I think you will. Are the only legal gambling operations those that are owned by, like, on Indian reservations, are owned by?
Yep, the Native American casinos
okay.
are available. Yeah, those are some of the locations. They were also talking about if you're doing any type of fundraising, to do like a sweepstakes through a fundraising event, that's legal under Arizona state law, but again, they're very finite in their definition of illegal and illegal types of operations when it comes to gambling. So this is just one of those illegal cases. But they said that these are kind of becoming more and more popular, these types of sweepstake type
internet
locations. Where they're under the disguise of being an internet cafe, but when you go in there, you pay them money and then
they give you
sort of sweepstakes. I'm not exactly sure how it's all run, but basically said that it's illegal because you're giving them money in the hope that you win money back.
Right.
And then they're creaming a little off the top for themselves.
Yeah.
So
and I don't think that's just a local problem. I was working in LA right before coming here, and I definitely remember something like this happening in East LA or like the Inland Empire, and a very similar sort of scheme. Internet cafe is the front, but then people paid money, got some sort of like scratch off card or something, and then you go on the computer and enter it, and like it's under the guise of like computer gaming or something, right?
And they said that in California they've actually really cracked down on this type of gambling, and this is something that we'll probably see more of with the new attorney Mark Brnovich, just because of his background in the gaming world.
Right.
So it'd be kind of interesting to see how he kind of cracks down, but it was kind of a stern warning that he had today, and we have that soundbite in our story tonight at 5, where he kind of looks right at the camera and says, if you're doing this type of crime, get ready to be prosecuted, because we're going to find you, and these are the new types of things that he's out there looking for. So
so basically, these aren't the only people. There might be more operations they're investigating.
Yeah, and he said that. This might be the very first of many arrests that we'll see happen with this type of crime going on. So,
well, thank you for that update, Ty. You'll have more on the 5 o'clock?
Yes, ma'am, 5 o'clock.
All right, well, I'm going to let you go, and I see Dave Muncie over there.
He's in the wings. He's ready to talk
He's ready
weather.
to talk to me about weather. I love having Dave up here to talk to me about weather.
Here we are.
Dave Muncie, once again, you have
Great
returned.
day, huh?
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Yeah. What happened to our lighting?
Oh, well.
Wait a minute.
It's okay. I know that you liked our new front lighting, but we actually adjusted. To get into technical terms, we adjusted, I think, the iris. I don't want to use the wrong term, but the cameras were adjusted. So we have similar lighting in terms of the output of video without having to have a big light in front of our face. Don't worry, you still look nice. Look.
Oh, I see they do have lights.
I know. Look in the monitor. You still look very nice.
It looks pretty good.
Okay.
I just was used to that light that we had.
It was nice yesterday. We might go back to it.
Oh,
right. Well, they keep the newsroom at a good temperature, I think.
Yeah. And we're going to see some warm weather here, too.
I know.
We're going to see some nice weather.
I'm very excited. I'm going to pull up your weather graphics now.
Yep, there's something for you. High pressure moving into the west. You see a little bit of moisture still hanging around. That's just hanging around. Don't worry about it. It'll be out of here before too long. And it's not going to have any effect on us at all. But this is something that will have an effect on us, and that is the marathon forecast for the P.F. Chang Rock and Roll Marathon coming up this Sunday. It, of course, is a Friday-Saturday event as well for registration and people getting together over at the Civic Plaza. We will be over there at different times. Different members of our news team will be there to say hi to folks and greet them. And I'll be there to let folks know what the weather is going to be like on Friday and Saturday. And I'll be the most popular guy in the building. Because
I mean, you're the most popular guy in this building, Dave Muncy.
I'll tell you, well, maybe here, but we had a couple of years where it was very cold and rainy for the PF Chang. And runners they need a certain kind of weather, and cold and rainy is not it.
Absolutely.
So they
and I know
happy.
that you have some very good news for those runners.
Oh
right?
boy, it's going to be beautiful. Yeah, here at 47 at about 7:50, and 10 a.m. about 58 degrees, and then at noon 68 degrees, which is about wrap-up time for most people, if not before then. A little chilly at the start, but they like that. They like to let their bodies warm up.
Right, they're going to build up a sweat anyway.
Absolutely, it's going to work just fine for them.
Sure.
And once again, sunny, clear. Beautiful day. So later in the day, as people are out congratulating themselves on what a wonderful run they had and breaking all their training rules, they will have a wonderful weather for that as well.
Wow, so you had a very good update today.
Yeah, it's real good stuff all the way through. My 10-day forecast is just fantastic. And we'll have that for you tonight on the news.
At the 5, right?
You
5
got it.
and 6
You
and
got
all. You're going to be there, giving
I'll be
everyone
here.
the weather.
I'll be here all night.
So my question back to this marathon, I just had this random question while we were watching. Are you a marathon runner?
No, I'm not.
You never yet.
No, I'm a walker. I mean that literally.
Yeah.
I walk 3 miles every morning.
That's amazing.
And I don't run. I have a few things that, especially as if you run your whole life, if you're not really, really, really careful, you're going to have problems. You're going to have some. My brother's a runner. My brother has some knee problems and things like that. So I've always been a walker. I know that people that run that watch it and take care of themselves and stretch properly, they don't have problems. But I know a lot of people have had problems from. So I'm not a runner. I don't get out there.
Have you ever done any marathon or anything like this?
Running, I have done some running, but only when I've been chased. So.
See, this is my fear. I can't run. I was the kid in junior high that walked most of the mile in PE, and I think it took me 12 or 13 minutes. Also, here's the secret. When I was about 12, I weighed 30 pounds more than I do right now.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know. I can't believe I just told everyone this. People in junior high know this. But yeah, so I could not.
That's okay for people to know.
I couldn't run for the life of me. And the problem is I never developed those running skills, so I still can't run. I don't go on treadmills. I go on the elliptical. I'm going to be a life walker as well.
Yeah, I do have a treadmill, but I walk on it.
That's
I don't
good.
run on it. Yeah, it's a faster pace walk than
Brisk
I walk
walk.
when I'm on the street. Yeah,
Sure.
because I adjust it a little different from that. But yeah, I do have the treadmill, and I do have a set of weights and things like that. So I do a lot of the stuff, but I'm just not a runner. Unless absolutely motivated.
We can just be spectators of runners.
That's it.
Just go
That's
cheer
it.
on the
you
people
and I
that
have
are.
the same mindset when it
All
comes
right,
to
we can
running.
just cheer on those people that are running this weekend.
There you go, and I love to watch them.
Right. And just for everyone watching, aside from the great weather, anyone who's driving out this weekend, keep in mind that there will be road closures because of the marathon.
Because of the marathon.
Yeah.
And also, if you're heading up north this weekend, and a lot of people like to do that after some snow comes in, be advised that there are going to be some slick roads. There's going to be some black ice on the roads, mostly on bridges. As you come back, especially because you'll get the warm temperatures during the day, it's going to melt some of the snow, and then that snow will freeze at night as the temperatures continue to drop off. So if you are going to be doing any traveling into the high country, there's still some snow, there's still some slick spots around as well.
All right, well, Dave, thank you for that update. I want to leave our viewers with a nice look at downtown. That is from our South
there you
Mountain
go.
camera.
That is our tower cam out there.
Right, it is pretty, it is beautiful, clear skies.
Nice clear sky,
I just figured this was a great little video to end our little webcast with.
There you go.
Everyone
Absolutely
out there,
perfect.
have a lovely day. Dave, thanks so much for joining me.
Okay,
And
good
I
to
will
see
see
you again.
you next time.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.